Welcome back to Let's Talk Racing Mind. I'm your host, Harrison Paul. And today we talk about Jurgen Klopp resigns from Liverpool manager. We're talking about football today. Nobody knows I'm a huge football fan. Americans wouldn't know it as soccer, but I'm a huge football fan. And this was quite interesting to me. It actually hurt me a little bit because, like, it's the end of an era, isn't it? And you're probably wondering why I'm going to speak about it on Let's Talk Racing Mind. Well, I do think this is a knock-on effect from Sadio Mane, and I'm gonna get into that. But first, let me just play the clip, short bit of the clip, where he discusses him leaving the club.
Well, Jurgen, we're here because you have an important message to deliver to our supporters. Would you like to tell them what that is?
Yeah, I have to. I will leave the club at the end of the season.
So, yeah, sad, isn't it? But you're probably asking me, how am I equating this to racism? Harrison, what has this got to do with racism? Well, this has very much got to do with the fact that there was speculation. I'm speculating that Sadio Mane was not being given the money he wanted to be given. Great player, African player, Senegalese. And he was not being given the money he wanted to be given. So he made his way to the money land itself. He went to the Saudi League, and he's playing with Ronaldo now, enjoying himself over there. Just recently got married. And, I wanted to just quickly talk about this, plight of black people always being undervalued and with the same, complete ignorance that they say black people don't work hard. Many times we are the black people, we are the people who are holding up a company. We are the people who are holding up, doing all the heavy lifting. And we do it because we are on this treadmill of trying to beat a stereotype of being lazy, of being primitive, of being incapable. And we overwork ourselves and we overgive and don't get back. And I believe that's what happened with Sadio Mane. I also want to talk about the clash between Sadio Mane and Mo Salah, and how, again, these are two Africans, and one African with a lighter tone is seen more valuable than the other. I definitely think that had a play in it. I definitely think that's why. And I think us as Africans, even within African culture, we do see a lot of the lighter tone Africans, which whether it be the Libyans or the Moroccans at times, find themselves have a very superiority complex when they compare, in order to when they are treating or dealing with their African counterparts. And I feel, I'm speculating now, but I feel that's definitely what brought that friction between them. I think Sadio Mane wasn't having it. But I wanted to just really get into that concept of just black people doing the heavy lifting. And ever since Sadio Mane left, the club had just been going down. I am a football fan. I do watch football a lot. And I think they really saw what they were missing when he left. And apparently he asked for a pay rise. He asked to be, and they weren't giving it to him. So, it's the way it goes. And I just wanted to kind of contextualize this for us at the moment, and just as we're on this Let's Talk Racing Modern show, and we always find ourselves, black people, on the treadmill trying to figure out that one day if I show on my capabilities, if I show my ethic, if I prove myself, this never-ending treadmill of proving yourself. And of course, there are people like Sadio Mane who are just brilliant, and just naturally gonna come out, to be the 1% of who come out where you can't live without them, right? And I feel like a lot of black people have that. But why I'm saying that is because Sadio Mane obviously became a big star, and he gets major credit in many ways, whether it be fans or everything. So I know a lot of time, the naysayers and the conservatives, or I don't want to say conservatives, should I say the people on the right wing, want to kind of use that as to say, look, there's a Sadio Mane. How is the racism still exist? Look, there's a Sadio Mane, or look, there's a, Patrick Vieira, or look, there's a Thierry Henry, or even in a business, look, there's one person. But I feel like they use the exceptions and they minimize something that is bigger than individuals, a fight that is bigger than individuals. And, it's funny because just today I was watching like a video on a bit of history. I like to watch history documentaries about German racism before I even got the news. And, the first black man who signed a petition, he used to work in the train station, signed a petition that he'd be able to vote, all sorts of things. Another black man who was actually, he died in 2019, and he was actually a part of the human Jews in Germany, and just the history of German racism. And, I think we underestimate, because that guy died in 2019. Goodness me, I would love to get his name if I can quickly get his name up right now. Let me see if I can get it up for you guys, because it's quite important. Yeah, so when you think about it, like, this guy passed. His name is Theodore Wanja Michael. Theodore Wanja Michael, probably, spelling with, is pronounced in a German way. He was part of the Jews in Germany, and he died in 2019. Can you imagine that? I'm going to just double check his age. I think he was in his 80s, if I can remember it exactly. They said that he died in his 80s. And I just, I always wanted to be known that we underestimate how long it takes for society to eradicate these dangerous, not only systems, but, you have to be mindful that systems are ran by people, right? So people, and there's been a cancer within people. Now, this is the point I'm trying to make, right? Check this out. When you are so good at something, when you are exceptionally good at something, when you are undeniably great, there is a level of respect that you are owed. Hear me. There's a level of reverence that you're owed. And I think that's where black people find the problem when we have this situation, that a lot of white people are going to have to find themselves respecting you and honoring you. Let's say you're you work in finance, and you're in a big in the corporate world, in a big company, and you're the best in there. There's a respect and an honor that a lot of people in that office would have to give you. Now, if there's a cancer that a person has struggles giving black people, or I guess abolishing a mindset, a cancer, I want to call it a cancer, from these times, and from continuous, even afterwards, the imagery that was used to destroy Africans, and this perception of Africa are lowly people, they come from a land that can't help themselves. This is why I always repeat to brothers, like, you need to stop pushing the narrative of corruption. It's so dangerous. It is a white man's narrative. This narrative of corruption. He is the most corrupt person ever known to man, but he is done reverse psychology and made you seem corrupt. Now, you feel as that these things, without you knowing, they work in the air. How about this? Up until now, when we started taking action on a world that was very sexist and very misogynistic in many ways, I can admit that. Someone may not consciously know that they're treating you based off how society, I'm talking to white women now as well, based on how society has formed a mentality or an idea, right? And that person is now treating you subconsciously, right? That's why I always say society is racist. Society is very flawed and broken. But it's when you are now addressed and someone brings wisdom to you, or, revelation, and you reject that revelation, I think then you become a racist, because then you've made a decision to double down. But we were all victims. Even myself, I was a victim of thinking Africa is a place to feel sorry for. I was a victim of believing that neocolonialism was not a thing, not knowing what neocolonialism was. And so you believe that Africa, due to the incompetence of its people, cannot seem to get itself off on its feet. Because surely, if back to back it's corruption leaders, I think it's so sad that we've never thought how fishy that is. If back to back to back it's corrupt leaders, what does that say about us as a people? What does that say about us as African people? Are we capable to run anything? And these things follow us even when we come to Europe. So, because of these narratives, when we go into companies and when we are excelling, when I mean excelling, I mean in ways that a person has to look themselves in the mirror and recheck. Someone who thought they were really good at what they did, or someone who really thought, like I said, the example, they were really good at finance, find themselves thinking, I thought I was good at finance. But here comes this black person, this uncivilized person, this unprimitive person, and that's without you knowing everything that was stored in the back of your mind, all those trucker ads at the back of your mind. This is subconscious. This is deep written in the subconscious. Same way women will testify to this. A man would have treated you a certain way, or men would treat you a certain way with a deep rooted subconscious, just like a, he's not even trying to be mean. It's just a belief system that's there. And I think that's another thing that people need to understand when we're abolishing racism. A lot of it is just belief systems that are just there. It's like matter of fact. It's not as if someone is trying to be violently racist. And this is even more harmful to the African, because when you see someone is fully convinced about you, like, oh, I heard you were this, or without you knowing, they're treating you like, I heard you were this, you begin to believe that about yourself. This is why me having pages like this is very important. And the African needs to have a renewed perspective on himself, a renewed perspective on his people, with a complete understanding and awareness of what narrative was there. Because you will face people who actually, and I will say for the sake of the argument, innocently have that perception. And you as a black person will be the one to correct that perception. You as a black person. So a lot of people think that racism is actually about, not being nice, or I'm nice to black people. But we don't know the damage that this imagery towards Africa has done to the world, where we actually have this without us knowing. A lot of times, if someone is being outdone by a black person in the workplace or in corporate world or anywhere, we mentioned football, there's actually a frustration that comes because it's like almost an insult to you without you knowing you have all this stored information about the black man. It's like Jordan Peterson. If Jordan Peterson wants to show up to Africa right now and was outsmarted by a guy in the rural area who was coming across as primitive, or any of those people, I watched the podcast on Jordan Peterson. He was dissecting the Exodus, the book of Exodus, with another bunch of scholars, ethical scholars, and it's like, because of what the word has fed you, if you were to go to the rural areas and have a sit-down conversation with one of those rural people who are wearing those clothes of their culture, and you were to have a back and forth, and you saw that the frequency that this man was on, who's in this rural area, was on a higher frequency with you, I can tell you those guys wouldn't swallow that pill properly. Why? Because the small world that they fed us is that those were the primitive, and that's one of the things I learned in this documentary. But I saw again, is that the colonialism, the colonial regime was reinforced. That's why it came across as innocent. They were trying to civilize a people. That's why it's important to understand your history, Negro. You understand where all these narratives today, when they come from, and you better identify them. And when you can better identify them, it's not for you to cry about them. It's for you to actively say, oh no, I see what's in your head. You don't get that. I'm going to fix that today. And if someone's stubborn, also this subject helps you to be strong-minded, because one of the other I say, I guess dense in our confidence was due to the fact that we began to believe that we needed these people due to colonialism. We began to believe that we needed these people. So the fear of rejection heavily took over the African people. Why does rejection mean so much to the African? These are the things I am studying and trying to figure out that we live in today. So a lot of people say, oh, just as the burning embers of racism was dying out. No, it wasn't dying out. Our parents were people who were a lot of them raised in just fresh out of colonial times. A lot of our grandparents, and they had the fear of the white man, and they were silent by some rebellious movements here and there from rebellious people, but generally the African was raised to be compliant. So now the children of the Africans are being raised in a more liberal world and are expressing things, and you think that we are re-racializing a world, but our parents felt a lot of negative, undermining, condescending beliefs about them, that they felt that it was their job to, outwork those narratives. But that leaves you on a treadmill, It leaves you on a treadmill and leaves you in a place where you're still begging and worshiping, and very toxic place. So I want to inspire people today to just understand this part, this much. The legacy we have to leave for our children now is that of a rebellion, a rebellious legacy. I think the legacy a lot of our African parents left for us was, if you prove yourself, you may be the lucky one picked out of all the Negroes, and then the exception for the rest of the black people. I'm very happy what Sadio Mane did, and he picked up his stuff and he left. I think as black people, we have to be a little bit more confident and rebellious and challenging. I think, and I can say it definitely, some of us are prepared to challenge. Some of us are prepared to, throw away an opportunity, what seems like it. But I always, and I have a genuine belief that when you challenge places, you earn respect at the end of the day, especially in this era. We definitely came from an era where it seemed like if you were to, protest something, justice wouldn't go your way at the end of the day. I feel like now there is people have to be more discreet, and hide their true emotion for you. So we can use that to our advantage in this new generation and challenge people and not be afraid to challenge people and show your intelligence as you challenge them. Not show your intelligence on how well you serve them, but rather show your intelligence on how well you are able and equipped to challenge them intellectually and psychologically and within your knowing of self. That's one thing I've learned in this time in my life, that it's that new knowing of self that I use to challenge people as a black man that really has come to my benefit. And once people know that you know yourself and understand, and you've come out of a sleep, because a lot of them are aware that a lot of black people are asleep. A lot of black people are just beggars. They will comply, So they get a good shock when a black person is ready to, challenge and speak truth to power. So that's just my take on this. And you know what I'm saying? Like, black people, we've always been the people giving, putting in the work, trying to beat narratives, trying to do this. And at the end of the day, for a very long time, we were not given the credit for our capacity. We're not given the credit for the work we did. And I think here, Jurgen Klopp found out how much Sadio Mane really meant. And I think if he could go back in time now, he would speak to the owners and say, give this man what he needs, But now he'll never know if he'll ever catch Pep Guardiola. and that's just the way it goes. So I encourage every black person, wherever you are, if you're in sports, becoming for managerial roles, if you're in corporate world, wherever you are, this is a message to say we as a people have to be people who challenge the system, who challenge our word, who challenge people who you can see are not really are being grateful for your word. And I think that comes from, you're going to have to step into some scary grounds where you're willing to lose people, you know? But at the end of the day, the respect you earn is a much, much higher respect. It's a reverence type respect. It's not just someone who they can use to do all the heavy lifting. Yeah, they have to credit you and give you the position you truly deserve. Thank you for watching.